Hello everyone, my name is Nicole Kovar and I'm the founder and director of Piano and More. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. Recently, I had one of our amazing teachers, Robert, reach out and he asked if we could do an interview for one of his school projects. And I think the conversations we had is something that both students and parents will connect with. I opened up about how I actually hated piano lessons when I was a kid, the moment that everything changed for me, and how those experiences shaped the way I built Piano and More into what it is today. If you've ever wondered how someone can go from avoiding piano like the plague to making it their life's work, then this is the story. So let's dive in.
So I remember when I first got hired, you had mentioned something like that you really disliked piano lessons when you were younger. So I'm
Yeah.
interested to hear like what the change was, and just in general, more of just your background and how
Yeah.
you got started.
Okay, it's a good question, and it's where it all started, right? The
Yeah.
piano lessons at home. Um, yeah, so my mom also is a musician and very musical, specifically in voice, and she grew up also taking piano lessons, and it was a priority for her, for all her children, to play an instrument. And she felt like I was musically inclined, and she told me, like, you need to have at least 3 years minimum of piano lessons, and when you're 8, you're gonna start, like, she had it all planned out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I started lessons, and it was with this little old frail lady in her, like, upper 80s. Her name was Miss Neal, and she was a very sweet lady, very, very sweet, but it was, the way I was taught, it was very like, here's some hymns, some religious like pieces that you're going to learn. She didn't even teach me scales. She
Oh
didn't,
wow.
yeah, there were barely any, like, there was no hand in exercises. She didn't really teach me theory other than notation through the book. So it was just the book and then a hymn. And as an 8-year old, I was just like, this is dumb. I'm not learning
Sure.
anything that I like. And then on top of it, my mom was really adamant about practice time. And she was like, you can't do anything fun until your practice time has been done. So
Mhm.
I would literally like be playing my hymns, and I'd be watching the
Oh, yeah.
neighborhood kids play across the street or play in the backyard, and that was pretty tough. So I would just get so mad, like the sun is shining, there's only so much time, and I'm missing out. It was honestly FOMO, I guess. A lot of it was
Yeah. Yeah.
FOMO. Yeah. So
So
yeah, that's how it started.
okay, so you went from that kind of I mean, a dark, unsatisfying
Yeah.
um, uh, sort of relationship with music and with playing to actually like starting your own business. So,
Mhm.
uh, what was the big change? It probably happened, I would guess it happened when you were looking for businesses to create or something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, my experience as a child was piano is terrible. And anytime I saw a piano, I felt those feelings. And it was an emotional trigger, like a reaction, like, oh, just this terrible negative dread. I would remember how hard I would have to push through. And so I avoided the piano like a plague for a long time. And then as a teenager, I started like listening to pop music and music that I liked. And sometimes there was some piano in the background. And I was like, I could do that. And I would try it out. I'll play by ear and I would just tinker around with it. And I realized like this can be fun if it's done my way.
Mhm, mhm.
So I finally was able to break that feeling that I had built up. And I started to play around by ear, play songs that I liked. And then yeah, I went to school, I went to college, and I was hustling. I've always been a hustler.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So I was just throwing out. I remember I was just like, okay, I'm a really good teacher. And I also moved across the country and I taught English as a second language. So I created like this online profile, and this is already like past grad school. Like I had already gotten an entry level job, and it wasn't enough. I wasn't making enough money. So I was like, okay, I need to do something part time after that. And I created, yeah, an online tutoring profile, and I was just like, okay, I can teach, like, these are all the things I could teach. And it was like English and history and like, elementary math or whatever. And on that list was piano. Cause I was like, oh, I can teach beginner piano, like, sure. And like picked it. Um, and I started to get people that wanted piano lessons, and
Mhm, mhm.
I said yes, and suddenly, like, all of this interest, all these feelings that I had as a teenager, I, like, put it in, like, playing by ear. I started my students quite early with that. I included, like, ear training as part of the first lesson, and it was a hit. We really had a fun time, and before I knew it, I wasn't teaching anything but piano because piano was such a, like, nice way to build relationships with people, and it was very enjoyable.
And then the step from you teaching your own students by yourself to hiring other people, creating an actual business out of it.
Yeah,
Was that the intent from the very beginning, or was that sort of a gradual process?
that was never the intent, never. Um, like, I still when I was teaching, I only saw myself as a beginner piano teacher. I didn't have a degree in music. I didn't have like a lot of experience performing even. Like I didn't go to competitions. I played in church here and there, but it was always with a group. Like I wasn't like this solo performer just out there as a being known as an excellent pianist. That was never me. So, yeah, I had a lot of, what's that word when you feel like you're not fit or good enough.
Is
There's
it imposter syndrome you're thinking of?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. I definitely struggled with a lot of imposter syndrome, like just teaching.
Mhm.
Um, but I ended up being a good teacher. I am a good teacher, and I knew I was a good teacher. So I ended up having this wait list, and the parents on that wait list actually were the ones that pushed me to open up a business.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. They were like, "You have a different approach to music. It's working with our friends' kids. We can see it." And a lot of these people on the wait list were already enrolled in a program.
Hmm.
So they were just like, "We just see the results are way better over here with your studio, and we want you to start hiring other teachers and teaching them, like, it doesn't have to be the traditional approach, like teach them the by ear stuff that you do and all this, like your methodology." So I started realizing, oh, okay, it is a teaching philosophy. It is an approach. It's not like just me. It's just a method, and anybody can do it as long as they believe in this approach. Um, so yeah, and it didn't happen instantly, right? Like I still had imposter syndrome. I remember like I think I was 25 or 26 when I hired my first teacher, and I was just like, this is going to be a joke. Like who's going to want to listen to me? And I don't even have a music degree. Like nobody's going to take me seriously. That's definitely something I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
even
Well,
today.
it's obviously grown pretty enormously to now, where I would think you have less time to teach and you do more like administrative stuff. So, like, what would like today? I know you just came back from a bunch of meetings. What would a working day look like to you? Does it still include teaching, or is it mostly just organization?
Yeah. I did stop teaching about 2 years ago. I used to teach I taught for a long time. I try to manage both, and I ultimately had to come to terms with it just wasn't gonna work. Either I was gonna always struggle with work-life balance or and the studio was always going to struggle. There were all these holes that really needed attention and care and time, and I didn't have time because I was teaching. So, I would say in the last 2 years, my life has been extremely different, and I had to learn what it was like to be a business owner, and I had to explore delegation, hiring, like operational teams, operations, how to build SOPs, how to make sure that I can like take this role and train it and leave it in their hands, in somebody else's hands, and make sure they're doing a good job because it was my reputation on the line. And that's also hard when you're the one that's been doing this for 8+ years. That was definitely a transition. So I went through learning, okay, this is you have to be a leader. You can't just attend a meeting and say, okay, guys, I think we should do this. What do you guys think? And that's definitely how it started. But yeah, you have to step up. You do have to do your homework and make sure that you can confidently lead your team. So I read a lot of business books. I listened to a bunch of business podcasts. I watched a bunch of business YouTube videos. Like my last 2 years has been a lot of just investing into me, and then also operating a team. So I will review their work. We'll have weekly meetings. Um, I just had a meeting with student services, which is our like front desk, and we got some feedback from the teacher surveys that we sent out. We send those out every year to our students, and they kind of give us feedback. And we had some feedback on there where we needed some improvement in the student services area. So we had a meeting, we went over that. What can we do? What can we improve? What kind of emails should we send out? So yeah, it's a completely different way of life than a teacher life for sure.
And was this what you majored in? Did you study business, or did you have any background at all
No.
in this? No.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
Yeah, I actually studied sciences.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So completely just
Completely different. It's
yeah,
arts and it's administration and business.
yeah.
Couldn't really get further than that.
That's why I spent the last 2 years just like in the books again. I felt like I was putting myself through my own business school basically.
Mm.
Mhm.
Well, and so you mentioned work-life balance. So obviously you've had a lot to do, and you've had a lot of, you know, different areas of life you've had to sort of draw upon. But is there, I mean, there must be some way to sort of like have some recreation that isn't just, musical recreation, maybe.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so what are your, can you share some wisdom on work-life balance, how you manage
Ooh.
that?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I've mastered that yet. And I don't know if you can even expect to have work life balance as a business owner for like the first 5 years of operating a business.
Yeah.
And piano and more, like I've been trained I trained my first teacher, or I hired and trained my first teacher 9 years ago. But I didn't really operate a business until I stopped teaching, which was 2 years ago. Like that was when I first started, or okay, no. I would say about 3 4 years ago. When do you remember when we went from, I don't know if you were here, we switched softwares. Were you here for that?
No, I
Okay.
was here for the Opus switch, but
Yes.
not
That
for
that
not
was
for
it.
any previous one.
Yeah,
So,
when we switched to Opus, that's when I started really diving into business. So I would say that's actually probably closer to 3.5 years ago, maybe.
was it really?
Yeah,
Well,
I know. Yeah, I know. But yeah, when we switched to a software, it's kind of funny when I think about it, but the software really pushed me to operate like a business owner because their
yeah.
features were built that way to operate as a business. And before that, I had just been operating like, oh, whatever you guys want, like pick whatever lessons and we'll be flexible. And I was just saying yes to everything. So, yeah, it really was that.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest change I remember when we switched over was makeups, and the flexibility of the makeups became a lot more strict.
Yeah,
And we became kind of more like tuition than sort
yeah.
of the, you know,
Hmm.
the more open design we had before. So
Yeah, we had like a la carte
yeah, yeah.
scheduling. Yeah. And now it's you have access to your weekly lesson time. It's up to you to take it or not. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and then so going back, I guess, just to music itself. Um, so do you still kind of study music at all? Like, did you have to relearn scales? If you weren't learning scales, did you have to sort of learn them yourself, or
Yes.
do you still do that? Because I still do. I'm still
Yeah.
constantly trying to learn
Yeah.
something new, right?
That's such a good question. And I do remember this period in my life where I was like I was watching my clientele list, and this was back when I was a solo teacher, so I hadn't even thought of a business name yet. I was just
Mm,
tutoring on the side. I was just hustling, and I remember like my non-piano student list was just getting shorter and shorter, and my piano list was just getting longer and longer, and I was just like, "Oh man, this is getting serious. I need to really like learn piano."
yeah,
Because
sure.
yeah, because there were skills and just being able to play by ear, teaching by ear, I did have to understand music theory in a different way, not
Mhm.
the way my teacher taught me, not only through notation. So yeah, I went to Barnes& and Noble and I bought myself like a music education book, music theory book, and just like I am today, these last 2 years looking into business books, I was doing the same thing and looking into music theory. Yeah.
That's great. And so what's interesting, so it's not very it's it's very open. So one of the things I found when I first started is that you kind of gave three sections to a lesson, like first 10 minutes, middle 10 minutes, last 10 minutes. But
Yeah.
it was very open about what actually could be done there. And
Yeah.
I find personally I kind of rely a lot on the book at the very, the lesson books at the very end, or at the
Mhm.
very beginning, and then at the very end have more
Mm. Yeah.
creative, creative time. And
Right.
it was partly because of the advice you gave. And is that something you kind of developed just through teaching enough times that
Yeah.
you sort of found that yourself, or is it part of some curriculum?
Yeah. I other than my religious like piano teachers, I didn't really know what a piano lesson should look like, and I wouldn't even say my piano teachers gave me a good representation of what a piano lesson should look like. Like, I didn't start playing scales until I started tinkering on the piano as a teenager when I wanted to like play the songs I heard on the radio, and my mom was like, "Oh, you need to learn scales," and I was like, what? Why? These things don't look fun at all. And she like pieced it together for me. But yeah, I don't even know how it happened, Robert. It just I knew I had to give them a warm up. I knew I had to use a book. I needed to teach them notation. But like that experience as a teenager, tinkering around and playing by ear, I loved that part. And so I was like, I can't leave this out. Like, this has to be part of my teaching strategy. And so it just came naturally. I was just like, and then at the end, we get to do this fun part where we get to learn by ear. And I can teach you almost any song you want to learn, like right now. We don't have to wait for years to learn it. Like, I can teach you some chords, I can teach you the melody, and we can just get to it. And yeah, I think it was actually because I didn't know what a structured piano lesson, or I didn't exactly know the traditional way of teaching piano. I think that was actually my advantage. Like, I could start with a clean slate, and I didn't feel like I was letting anyone down, like, the piano gods. I didn't really
Yeah.
have that growing up. Yeah.
All right, and then I guess this is more or less my last one, although it's kind of a big question. So you
Mhm.
mentioned the relationships you've had with students and with parents, and like primarily you're taking a mentoring role, and you
Yeah.
also in starting your business and in hiring new people, you have to take a mentoring role as well to train them in administration and so forth. So
Mhm.
uh, what are your thoughts on just mentorship in general? Could you kind of share your insights on what that kind of relationship is?
Yeah. Hmm. It really starts with community for me, and private lessons, a byproduct is this mentor role. You don't really have band classes, you don't really have this community, but it is something that I grew up strongly with. My family was very religious, and we went to church 3 times a week my entire life. And so I did have this church community. I grew up with, not only did I have friends at school, but I also had friends at church. And so I really benefited from having these strong communities that I grew up with from as a child to an adult, or I guess a teenager. So I naturally learned, and then also my family did a lot of traveling, and we had to present ourselves as a family because it was kind of like a family business.
Huh.
From a young age, I wouldn't say, like, I am generally shy, but I had to learn to, like, stand in front of a crowd, shake their hand, introduce myself from a young age. And um, so I think the church gave me a lot of professional abilities that now have helped me in my life. Because I'm not a natural speaker. I'm not a natural, I don't know, people person, like connecting people, but it is something that I do enjoy. I do like the byproduct of it. So, um, yeah, in private lessons, it is nice to be able to connect and to be able to see how you can just show somebody that they have the power, they have the ability to improve, and all you have to do is just guide them, just break it down into little steps. It was just like a powerful transformation that I could be a part of, and I enjoyed that process. Um, and I liked connecting my students to other students. And I would, like, even though we were in home, right? So my students rarely saw each other, they only saw each other at recitals. But I would always connect them. I'd be like, oh, I have a student that's your age, and we did this challenge, and they scored, they were able to play it at this many beats per minute. Do you think you could do it? And so
Yeah,
I would just kind of warm them up, like, oh, you're going to meet this person. We're going to meet at the recital, and they're your age. And, I would just I would start building that community. And I would just talk about the other student to the others. And also a lot of my students knew each other too, because they would go to the same school. And so that helped a lot. So yeah, it's just a natural byproduct, right, of being a mentor when you're with or meeting someone in their home. This is their safe space, like, they open up to you. Eventually, you get to meet their entire world, right? You get to meet their family, you get to meet even their neighbors, you get to meet their friends when they sleep over, like, you meet their entire world. They really trust you, they share things with you, and you just try to be the best guide and in their world because you
Yeah,
see it,
yeah,
you know it for what it is. So, it is a really special role to be not just a private teacher, but an in-home private teacher.
yeah, yeah. Well, I love that. That's that it's not really a role, the mentorship. It's more a byproduct of the community you're in. That's a lot more natural, I think, and
Mhm.
probably a little less stressful as well, maybe.
Yeah.
So, also, you mentioned just as a side one, you mentioned that you were kind of in a family business. What is that?
Man, you caught me. Mm, well, I say family business because uh, we were missionaries.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, yeah. And when you're a missionary, I grew up as a missionary kid. So when you're a missionary kid, you have to represent your family, and you're also on that prayer card when your dad gives it to the churches, like, and you have to be there. You have to. There was a lot of pressure to always perform well because these churches were funding you. They believed in you. You were going out and doing, the Lord's work. And I no longer practice. I'm not religious anymore, but this was a big part of my life for so long. And yeah, I just nowadays when I look back, I'm like, this is a family business. Like I was working from from the very
Yeah, yeah.
beginning. Yeah. So
Where'd you go? Was it just in the US or did you go around the world?
well, we initially traveled all over the US, like to different churches, and then eventually we did move to Slovakia. And so I have 2 years. And get this, Robert, I moved when I was 17 years old to Slovakia.
Oh man.
Yeah, so my senior year of high school, I had to say goodbye and leave to another country. But I loved it. Slovakia was great. I had a good 2 years of life there.
And then just back to the US for school or
Exactly. Yep.
wow, it's almost like a vacation in a way.
Yeah.
Kinda cool.
Yeah. I didn't think that at the time at 17 years old, but yeah, I ended up liking it a lot. Thanks so much for watching this interview and sharing my journey. It really helped remind me why we do what we do here at Piano and More, which is making music lessons something kids love and they look forward to, not something that they're dreading. If you found this story inspiring, then subscribe and follow us for more tips, stories, and behind the scenes conversations about the power of music. And if you're a parent thinking about lessons for your child, or maybe you want to start taking lessons, then check out the links below where you can find out if we can bring lessons to your home. Till next time, keep the music going because life really is better with music in it.